folks. I hope you are doing well. I'm just about to start to harvest up some ash that was recently fallen in my neighborhood. Some arborists were taking down an ash tree and asked them if they could spare a couple of pieces, and they were happy to provide me with a couple logs here and a branch or two. So I'm looking forward to harvesting that up. So my first step is I've drawn a line down the middle here, not down the middle actually, off to one side, specifically off the center, so that we'd avoid the center, which is the pith. We want to cut away from that because that part of the wood will always split. So here we're going to start up the chainsaw and cut basically down the log on one side. For this last little bit, I really should have had that on these logs here to support, so that I could cut right to the base. And my chainsaw certainly drifted in one direction. It wasn't exactly a straight cut, but we did a pretty good job. So it's always nice to look in the piece and see what we found, and a pretty nice color actually. It's a very nice golden color inside, which is good, and it's going to be a good bowl for a good log for bowls or spoons or whatnot. We'll see what we get into, but thanks for joining me so far. Welcome folks. I'm just beginning to process some of this wood here, and I already split up one of these logs basically in half, and then I have this half that actually still has the pith inside the middle, and that's important to note because we don't want to use any of the wood that has the pith. That's the center of the tree. So this one actually had a crack forming basically right down the middle, so I thought I'd split it, and then this is no longer usable for wooden bowls. That's my initial intention, but it will certainly be a nice piece for some spoons, for instance. So I'm going to see if I can heave this part by just using the axe as a wedge. It is amazing how strong this wood is. It was just holding on by a couple fibers, and for me to pull it off my hand would have been difficult. But so there's that wood now. It still has the pith inside, so I'm going to do that cut now fresh. Basically, I'm going to cut off just like I did in this one here. You might be able to see that. Essentially, I've lopped off the tip of the wood that has the pith in it. So let's try that again. That was good. That got that piece off completely. So this is now pith free, and a lot of stress has been reduced. I do see another split happening here, so I might have to heave a bit more off. But as far as there's certainly enough wood in there for many spoons, which will be a whole heap of fun. Alright, so let me just do one more. You can cut here, and continue to use this mask. And you know, I used to automatically reach for the chainsaw to make those types of cuts, but honestly, using the wedge method, it's just so much easier to harvest the wood. So thanks for joining me, folks. I'll see you in the next stream, perhaps, where we start to process some of this wood for spoons and bowls. So that would be the next step, to really get into defining what each log will turn into. So folks, I've got some logs here. I've just been processing it using the bandsaw, or the chainsaw, and I've got a couple bowls here that still need some more work processing. But this one is actually ready for to identify it as a bowl. And essentially, I take this round circle with a center point, and I find roughly the center of the bowl, or the future bowl, now log. And depending on how big I want the bowl, I basically, so this one I want to basically make the biggest bowl I can, which is essentially a 12-inch bowl at the most. And I just follow the trace this around, and that tells me exactly where to cut using the bandsaw. That's if I can get it into my bandsaw. This is actually probably, I have to measure that. It's probably too big for the bandsaw, so I might have to do some processing actually using the chainsaw here. And essentially, I need to take off this big hump here on the wood. So that's what I'm going to be doing next, is basically cutting that out. Here too, this will be actually an urn, and yes, as an urn, as in something for a person or a pet, God forbid, either or. But many people want to be in a nice container when they leave us. So this will be, hopefully I'll be able to carve this out into a good looking one. And I think I did an awful job there. Let's see. Oh, I did a terrible job at marking this. This is going to look terrible. Yeah, I've got a couple different circles there, but I just generally know that I've got to remove everything else that's not pink. Will have to go, and then I'll put that on the lathe and then spin that, and we'll get a good size shape out of that. So that's an urn. Here we have another, I think, an okay piece for a bowl. So again, I'll take this. This is an awl, it's called. Trace around. Alrighty, so here we have the tracings for the bandsaw. So the next step is essentially me to put this on the bandsaw, and that is in the workshop. So hopefully we'll, if I do lose you here, maybe you can join me and see me processing this on the bandsaw. All right, hey folks. Hope you're doing well. I am just preparing for some coating of the ends of these logs that I have here. It's important to, let's just see here, to seal the end of the wood so that, for instance, here we're going to apply a sealant to the ends of the wood. And that will basically prevent the wood from cracking as it evaporates, as it dries. The wood essentially evaporates. So this is a sealant essentially, and we'll keep the moisture in there, and it will still evaporate and it'll still become more dry, but at a much slower pace. And the good thing about that is that the fewer cracks will develop. So it really is a rather simple process, and it's certainly a process that can get a little bit messy. I just had these blocks. Wow, that just happened. So we're going to put this coating onto the end of this log, and that will basically seal it, which is good. As I was mentioning how messy it would be, I didn't expect it to be that messy, but we're all good. I'm glad I chose to do it out here. And I also have some sawdust that's on the ground, so it's certainly able to protect most of it. So that's one side, and I kind of like to go down a little bit on the sides, just because there is some evaporation happening there. This is essentially like a wax, and the wax will dry. And basically seal the entire piece. So I've got one more log here to do. And then I've got one more log. Oops. There we are. Good, so that'll take about a day or so to dry. And here's one more log. This one will actually turn into an urn, is the intention actually. This one will be a bowl. These ones will probably be spoons. So there we go. So that was the process. Normally it wouldn't be so messy, but frankly, you do want to lather quite a bit on here, so it does provide a wonderful seal. So you can see I've got a bit of a cleanup to do. Now, actually, I do throw on some sawdust on there just to provide a little bit more sealant or protection. And then these will go into the to the back of the garage, and then I can use them as I need to. They'll probably last at least until springtime, before they become unusable. But basically we'll be able to get to them over the fall, essentially, and make some bowls and spoons and a couple things like that. So hopefully you'll join me on another stream in the near future. Thanks for watching, folks.